Right. Rich, going back to you, what do you think is Israel's end game here, considering the fact that many of the leaders of groups like Hamas, for example, are living overseas in five-star hotels in Qatar, other parts of the Middle East. We know Iran backs Hamas. When we talk about victory and dismantling Hamas, what are your thoughts about mm, these different moving parts?
Well, unfortunately, the United States has experience in trying to dismantle groups like Hamas with the Islamic State, and before that, Al Qaeda, even Taliban in Afghanistan, groups that have committed terrorist acts. And you can inflict an enormous amount of military punishment on these groups. In the case of Hamas, you might even end their rule in Gaza. But these groups have an ideological network, they have a financial network, they're dispersed. And even if Israel were to conduct targeted killings or assassinations of Hamas leadership in third countries, that's not going to end or dismantle the network. I think that the definition of victory has to be dismantling Hamas's physical control over Gaza and its ability to launch attacks from there into Israel. But the network organization will continue in Lebanon, in other Middle Eastern countries, in unfortunately the hearts and minds of some of the Palestinians as well. So this is not going to be a simple end to the Hamas problem, although it will shift it from a territorial threat to more of a network clandestine threat.
And just before I go back to Jody, I want to follow up on that with you. So we know, and this has been said time and again, and I know that some pro-Palestinian activists don't like us mentioning this, but the people of Gaza voted for Hamas when they had an opportunity not to. So is this going to become harder for, like you said, those hearts and minds inside the Palestinian community, not only in Gaza, but elsewhere as well, to radicalize others?
A response variable.
Rich, this
And
one
the
was for
more
you.
the Palestinians feel that they have been subjected to a blockade, to an embargo, to military violations, the more it strengthens the hand of so-called resistance organizations. Now, I also think that the Palestinians, many of them, they want a normal economy, they want a normal life for their families. So I think there is going to be a window for a political alternative among Palestinians. But this is not going to lead to a total repudiation of Hamas, because in fact, this fighting, in a sense, fulfills their narrative that they are the only side that will, fight back with the Israelis with every available tool, even terrorism.
Can you WhatsApp?
Bring a credible political perspective to the whole process if it is to succeed. Both Israel and Palestine must be at such a conference, and the international community must be involved in supporting it. Europe is all ready to work to make it happen. The aim of the conference must be to implement the two-state solution. Turning a new page of mutual recognition is the best way to sustainable peace. But first, hostilities must end. And my country, Spain, will continue to call for a lasting humanitarian ceasefire and will continue to work to offer a horizon of peace and prosperity to this beautiful region. Shukran, thank you very much. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, dear Pedro. And my colleague Pedro Sanchez and I come here with a message of solidarity and of humanity. On the other side of this border, horrific fighting has taken place. Too many civilians have been killed. They were the first victims, and as always, the first victims are in general women and children. Families have been torn apart. Communities have been destroyed. Israel has the right to defend its citizens. The horror of Hamas is barbaric, and Hamas needs to do everything to release all the innocent hostages. Probably today 13 hostages will be liberated, but 13 hostages is not enough. All the civilian hostages that have been captured need to return home. Please send them home now. Hamas must end the cycle of violence that they started on October 7. And the military operation that Israel is conducting to stop the terrorist attacks must respect international humanitarian law. A military operation needs to respect international humanitarian law. The killing of civilians needs to stop now. Way too many people have died. The destruction of Gaza is unacceptable. We cannot accept that a society is being destroyed the way it is being destroyed. We know that the World Food Programme has around 1,300 tons of supplies ready to be delivered to the people of Gaza. We are talking about water, about medicines, about other basic needs. We have absolutely no time to waste during this ceasefire. People have fled their homes, they are living in very difficult circumstances, and winter is coming. So we must do everything for the help that is standing there to get it to the other side of the border. And Egypt is doing all it can. And really I would like to thank the leadership of Egypt in this. But altogether, we cannot lose further time. And Belgium has upscaled its humanitarian aid. We are sending medicines, we are sending sleeping bag, hygiene kits. We will have additional planes coming in the next days. I believe that a joint mission like this has an important message to give. And that message, we give it here on the behalf of the European Union. There is no military solution to this conflict. One day, people will need to talk to each other, and a political solution is the only solution that is possible. And so the talks need to be relaunched. We need to stop the settler violence on the West Bank, and we need to stop the killing of innocent people. We need to respect international humanitarian law, and we must make sure that all parties are abiding by the rules. And I indeed pay as soon as possible. And the last that your motivation, then what you are doing here as volunteers is being responded on the other side, and that access is being given, and that the million of people that are in need in Gaza get the help that they need. And as I said before, a temporary ceasefire is good. A permanent ceasefire is the objective and is the only way to help the killing of innocent people. Thank you.
And Your Excellencies, Mr. De Croo, this is Mohammed Gad from Al Qahira News TV. I would like to address a question to both of Your Excellencies. The mediation that took place by Egypt, Qatar and the USA led us to where we are today, reaching a humanitarian ceasefire. How do you intend to support the mediation of an extension to this humanitarian ceasefire going beyond the 4-day cap?
Thank you for your question. 1 day of ceasefire is good. 5 days of ceasefire is better. And a permanent ceasefire is the objective. And everything needs to be done to use this moment. To use this moment to release all the hostages. To use this moment to get the more than 1,000 trucks that are standing there, to get them inside. And then to talk. As I said, there is no military solution to the conflict. There is only a political solution to the conflict. And people need to talk.
Okay, we are listening to Spain and Belgium prime ministers. They're calling for a permanent Gaza ceasefire at the Rafah crossing. They met with Egypt's leader El-Sisi just a bit earlier. They're both in the region. Jody Cohen, our correspondent, is still with us. Jody, what are your thoughts about this permanent ceasefire that many are calling for? And what does this mean in the eyes of the Israelis? Does this mean just going about business as usual after what happened on October 7th? Or is there maybe more nuances that we don't know yet about?
I think many people across the world would love to have a ceasefire, and people don't enjoy seeing people suffering. The difficulty is, from Israel's perspective, is if there's a ceasefire, that effectively means leaving Hamas in place governing Gaza. That effectively means Hamas has the ability to infiltrate into Israel again and to carry out the massacres like it did on the 7th of October. a big focus of their attack. They told their terrorists to go and rape women, babies. They burned people alive. The horrors are just horrific. I saw the footage of the Hamas GoPro cameras because they didn't just commit these atrocities. They wanted to film them and show the world what they had done because they were proud of it. So leaving Hamas in place by not having a ceasefire yet effectively means that Israel would just always be on the defensive, waiting for the next opportunity that Hamas might have to carry out another massacre. What that has meant in practice is, like the people in northern Gaza have had to move and be displaced to southern Gaza to go to where it's safer for them while the fighting is going on. People in the south of Israel, people also in the north of Israel because of rockets being fired from Hezbollah in Lebanon, they have been displaced. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of people there. So what that effectively means is that Israel as a country becomes only livable in the very center of the country because it's been evacuated in the south and the north. So from Israel's perspective, as much as many people would love to say, yes, let's have a ceasefire, it has to be a ceasefire once Hamas has been dismantled and once security has been restored to Israel.
Yeah. Right. And that kind of ceasefire, many believe Hamas is going to use as propaganda for victory as well. Jody Cohen, our correspondent in Israel, keeping us up to date with all the latest all throughout these bizarre and turbulent times. Jody, thank you for that. We were also earlier joined by retired Colonel Rich Outzen, Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council and the Jamestown Foundation as well.